Today's date is May 10th, 2024. My name is Jacob Stickle. I'm the archival assistant here in Warren County. We're here for the Oral History Project, and I'm here with
Rosemary Steiner.
Paul Steiner.
Amber Stegner.
Awesome, thank you guys for coming. So, as listed previously in the email, I have the little childhood questions part. So,
Right.
when and where were you guys born?
Well,
Start asking the questions.
I think we know most of them, but not all of them.
Fair enough. Would you, we can start with when and where were you guys born? Either of you, really. Both of you?
I was born in Hamilton County, Glendale, Ohio, 1929, January 9th.
All right.
And I was born in Cincinnati, Ohio, on October 1st, 1933.
All right, all from Ohio.
Yes, I never lived anywhere else.
Hey, nor me. How did your guys' family come to live here?
Live there or here?
Here.
They lived there because they were farmers.
Mhm.
And both my grandfather and dad was born in Hamilton County, and they farmed down there
All their lives?
all their lives.
Fair enough. What were they like?
Oh, wow. Well, they were ambitious, worked hard. My dad went broke on his first farming episode in 1931 to 34 because of the Depression.
Mm-hmm.
He moved back home with his father and worked for what they called the WPA. That was a organization for the government that a lot of people out of work did work for roads and other county and state projects.
All right, and after that, he came right back into the farm, huh?
Right. While he was working there, he met a fella, and he thought he was pretty ambitious. What he had was a pair of horses with what we call a slip scoop, and they were grading out for, what is it, Galbraith Road now down there. And they're building a road. They didn't have bulldozers back then. The scoop is how they moved dirt.
Oh, that would have been painstaking.
Yes, I'm sure.
And one of the guy in charge of the project saw Dad work pretty hard, and by that time the government came in and bought farm ground. Must have been 30 or 40 farms, and which they developed green hills in that. And the ground around they rented to farmers who got taken out by the Depression. And my father rented the first farm they rented.
All right.
So
For $10 an acre.
So that's where I grew up down in that area, and I went to a Catholic school in Glendale. And of course, being the area, I was born there. I had a sister; she was born there. And when I got out of school, my dad said, "Well, what are you going to do? Are you going to farm or?" You going to do something else? You want to go to college? So I decided I'd stay home and farm with him.
All right. And why did you decide to do that anyhow? Did you feel that?
Well, I don't know. It just seemed the thing to do.
Hey, fair enough. I'm sure you're helping him on the farm the entire time, huh?
Yeah.
Fair enough.
So then I met a girl I kind of liked.
Who was not a farmer.
She was not a farmer. And in '54 we got married. And by that time the fella next door to my dad who had rented the farm decided to retire. and we applied, and we were able to rent the farm.
All right. Goodness. How was the change for you? Because, I mean, you have never been part of a farming community before,
I
right?
have not been. In fact, my father warned Paul that I don't like to get up early in the morning, but he said she will, and I did.
Oh.
Yeah, we milk cows, and you got up 4 or 5 o'clock, about 5 o'clock in the morning, and milk cows 5 o'clock in the morning, and 5 o'clock in the afternoon. It was, and a 7-day job.
Absolutely.
But then, after 2 years,
After 2 years, one of the officials out of Green Hills, or in the area, said that they needed the farm for something else. We had to move. So I got looking around for a farm, and the one I found was here in Lebanon. And my good friend's father said, "I'm going to buy that farm. Will you rent it?" And I said, "Yes." So he went to buy the farm. He was bidding less than the asking price, and they refused.
Hmm.
So we said, "Well, if you're not going to buy it," then my dad got with me, and we was able to buy it. There was a loan company called Federal Land Bank. They had a office here in Lebanon, and they covered about 4 counties. And so I had only farmed 2 years. I had no money. My dad had just bought a farm out in Indiana, and we had no extra. So at Federal Bank, what they offered me did not cover my expenses to buy the farm.
Oop.
Well, we had another good friend that was on the board of directors of Federal Land Bank out of Eaton. So he came to our rescue, and so he gave my dad a loan to cover over what I couldn't cover, and we bought this farm here right out of Mason.
All right. Pretty cyclical. It's like, okay, he goes to him, he goes to him.
got pretty complicated.
But when we got it bought about middle of January,
Mhm.
and we went to the house, had no furnace, no bathroom, pretty. So Dad and I, of course, we got up. I had to milk my cows, and then we'd come up and we'd work during the day on it because we weren't planting no crops at that time. It was January and February. And we put in a bathroom, and we put in a furnace, and the house had 2 big chimneys and fireplaces, so we took one of them out and put in a big picture window. So at that point, we had the house pretty well we moved into.
And we continued to remodel it for about 20 years.
Yeah,
Oh,
well,
man.
a little later, it had one water pipe into it from the well down from where the barn was, and I don't remember no sink or anything. It was just, and so when we put in the bathroom, we had to run water. The house only had one basement under one room
Mhm.
with rock siding, and so we put a water heater in there, and we put our furnace in there, and then in that area we put our bathroom, and made it kind of living like we were used to living.
There we go. That's good to hear. Oh, because that would have been, you said you guys got married in 55?
Four. 54.
54. That's pretty, yeah, that's getting a little Spartan for little base amenities there back then, too. Goodness. You already covered that. The next question was, what did your parents do for a living? You mentioned that already.
My parents and grandparents were both farmers.
All of them, huh? You mentioned you had a sister. What did she end up doing?
She married a farmer, and they live over in Butler County.
All right. You guys have any other siblings, or just your
No,
sister?
that was just the two of us.
And next question would be, I guess did you guys grow up there and with your father?
Oh, did you? Excuse me, I didn't catch that.
Oh, no problem. Did you guys grow up there in Hamilton County, you said?
Yeah, oh yeah. I grew up in Hamilton County. Went to school 12 years at a Catholic school in Glendale.
Hmm.
And then when I got out of school, that's when my dad asked, well, what do you want to do? And I stuck with farming.
Fair enough. And would you mind describing the community you grew up in? You mentioned the Catholic school, and then I suppose it was a farming community then too.
Of course, it was all farm community. As I say, the government bought all this ground, and all of our farmers around us was fellow people like my dad. That the Depression kind of put them down a little bit, and they was able. You had to rent or. Well, for a farmer, they rented at lower rents than what other people be renting.
Mm-hmm.
And when they developed Green Hills, that was a rental community, and your rent was kind of low, and you couldn't make over a certain amount to live in town. So this was for people who were washed out by the Depression.
Oh yeah.
And that was kind of our community, the farmers around and the people we got to know in Green Hills. We all grew up together.
Small place, huh? Green Hills.
Hmm?
Small place?
It was, you mean the farm?
The Green Hills itself.
Oh, Green Hills was not a real big town. It has grown some. In the 50s, as things got better, then the Green Hills started selling their apartment buildings and houses that they had built. People began to buy them. Mm-hmm. And then in the farm community, in the middle 50s, two guys, Mr. Warner, Mr. Cantor, they were out of Georgia, I guess. They came in and through the government took over all the farms, and that's where Forest Park became available.
No kidding.
They developed Forest Park there, yes.
Oh wow.
But the people that lived in Green Hills liked it so well that some people even refused a raise at their wages so that they could stay there, to live there. But then as things went on and everybody got a little more prosperous, the government sold the property. They were able to buy their own homes. And so they, a lot of them did. It's still a beautiful community. Yeah.
That's inspiring to hear. What did you guys want to be when you guys were growing up? I know you mentioned being a farmer,
Yes.
but did you aspire anything else when you were a child?
Not really. When I came up to Mason and started farming, my dad helped me a whole lot. He helped me get the house ready, and he would come and help me when we were out in the fields farming, and that's where we really got our start.
Got you ready then.
And Paul's mother came often with Paul's dad when they were working in the fields, and we had 5 children in 6.5 years, so I was pretty busy.
Oh,
But she helped, and I learned a lot from her. She was an excellent housekeeper and kept everything nice and clean, a good cook, and all. So it was a very good arrangement.
All right.
As things went on, I was very, very happy to have had the farm for the children to grow up on, because they all had chores to do, and it just turned out very well.
Okay.
The barn was built in 1940, and it had 30 stalls for cows to milk cows. And as we went on, got better, I tore down the old silo and we built a larger one, and we put 10 more stalls in the barn. So we was milking 40 cows, and then the electric company came across, wanted to build a high-powered electric line through our place. So from that, we took out the other chimney in the house, got a nice kitchen, and put on 2 more rooms in the house.
Hey, all right.
So things moved on.
Good. I thought that was going to end with, oh, when they took part of the land, but no, you went, no, we used that to our advantage.
Right. That's right.
They went across the length of the property, and there were 3 big power towers on it, which haven't interfered with the farming at all. And
No,
that's
it
really
didn't bother us any.
helped pay off the mortgage and let us improve the house a little bit.
All right.
Then what about the milking parlor, Paul? When did that come along?
Well, as we come along, we at that time the barn sat here and the milk house sat here, so you had to carry the milk from here and put it in 10-gallon cans in the milk house, and there we had a cooler that with water in it that we set the cans in. And as things moved on, we decided to put in a milk machine. So that meant putting plastic pipe all around the stalls in the barn. And so we built a milk house right at the corner of the barn. So the milk went right into this milk house. Then we bought a bulk tank. In 1960, we hauled our milk to the Meyer Dairy in 10-gallon cans. In 1960, a fella come in and he says, I'm going to be hauling your milk. Myers aren't taking canned milk no more. I said, what's that all about? So he said, well, you're going to buy a bulk tank. So we got asking around, and then I met another guy. He says, well, if you ship milk to us, we'll give you the bulk tank. So we changed dairies to United Dairy Farmer at that point. And of course, then when we milked the cows, it'd go up in this clear plastic pipe, go right into the milk house and right into the bulk tank.
Pretty straightforward.
It worked pretty good.
And then the big tanker truck would come in every 2 days and pump it out and take it to the dairy. Made a big difference. Before that, we had to deliver the milk down in was Carthage, wasn't that?
Yeah.
Hartwell, Carthage, wherever that was. And
Really.
that took an hour or more, and so a big part of the day. So the bulk tank was a big help.
All right, really cut your guys' time down, thankfully.
Yeah.
So as time moved on, our boys graduated out of high school, went to college, and 2 of them came home, wanted to farm. So now we had to make the difference. We built another barn that housed cows, and the regular barn we put in a milking parlor. So at this, we could milk 6 cows at a time, and turn them out and bring 6 more in.
Are you familiar with the milking parlor at all?
Not really, if I'm being honest.
A milking parlor is kind of like a pit where you sit here or stand here, and the cows are up here on a higher area.
The cows was sitting up here, and of course they were in like this, and you came in and you could wash the udder and put on the milking machine. And while they had something to eat up there to distract them from what we were doing.
Kept him busy then.
Yeah.
And so that went on for quite a while.
Got to the point we were milking 100 cows. Probably around 100
Yeah, when
cows.
the two boys came with us, we increased one from 40 cows to 100.
Over time, yeah.
I think we got extra help around the farm. Let's go at it.
Yeah, they helped around the farm. And then around 1990 or so, I kind of retired from milking, and one of the boys took over although they worked together, he took over the herd. And by 2000, he decided to sell out and do something else.
Oh.
So he sold the cows and went to work for the cemetery in Mason.
Oh.
Rose Hill Cemetery.
Interesting.
And now he's a manager down there and going to retire in about 6 months.
Good for him.
The rest of his life, he left the farm and he bought a few acres up the road a little further. And he had cattle there, beef cattle, and had a little farming to do. And his daughter, she took up farming, and she got a store there at his farm. You can go in and buy beef, milk, eggs, all that. So.
She also raises turkeys.
Yeah, she's got a bunch of
almost
turkeys
500 turkeys every fall.
going right now.
Yeah.
So the farmer kept going.
I was going to say, did you have any sort of issue? You said he sold the farm? The other
No, I
brother?
did not sell the farm.
Oh, okay. I missed that.
As one son moved off, another moved on.
Ah, I see.
And so we had 4 boys. The oldest one, he went to school and became a college professor.
Oh, all right.
And the second boy is the one that took over the cows. The third boy started farming, and all of a sudden he got a job in Columbus
Oh.
with the
The prison system.
prison system.
He was running one of the farms, or some of the farms of the things. He did that for several years. But
Yeah. So they did that, and then my youngest son, he went to college, and he went around a few more farms. Then when the farm became vacant, he came in and he took over the farm now. And
he
the other boys helped him.
He also became an auctioneer, which is
Yeah.
his major project.
He-
now, is auctioneering.
He decided to be an auctioneer and went to, I guess it was through mail or something.
No, St. Louis. He had to go to St. Louis
He went to St. Louis.
school.
Okay.
to be an
And
auctioneer.
so he and his sons now are auctioneer, his one son. And right now the farm ground, tillable ground, is rented out to another farmer. The pasture is my son, and granddaughter has got beef cattle running on it. So that's where we're at today.
Still going strong then. And you said you had 5 children?
Yes.
A daughter
Mm-hmm.
and 4 boys.
What's your daughter doing?
She was with the juvenile court system. She was probation officer, which was pretty shocking for a farm girl to go in and find out what really goes on in the world, I guess.
Yeah, my goodness.
She went to school at UC, and then when she came out of UC, this job was here in Lebanon, and she spent her whole life doing that. She's retired from that now.
But she does a lot of other stuff. You know, she
She's
works for
busy doing
blues
other
trading and things like that.
Oh, yeah, keeping herself busy.
Yeah, busy, yes.
What do you guys tend to do now that you're, I guess, retired? Is that the right word
Yeah,
for all this?
I'm pretty well retired now. I don't do much. Hard for me to get the yard work done.
We unfortunately go to a lot of funerals. Seems like, you know, yesterday we had to postpone our
Right.
conversation because of that. We had a funeral. But we play cards and we do things at church and things like that. We keep pretty busy. We moved from the farm 30 years ago now. It's hard, more than 30 years ago. Hard to believe time went so fast. But it's pretty hard for us even to keep up with the yard work. But the children, we have 12 grandchildren, and some of them are around, and they help a lot and things like that. But
My grandfathers, when they retired, they each owned a small farm, less than 100 acres. When my dad retired, he owned 300 acres out in Indiana, and he had 70 acres here in Butler County. And I thought, well, I probably should do better than he did. Every time a farm become available, some reason I didn't get it. And the last two farms, they wanted too much money for it, and anyhow.
At that time, it seemed too much money for us.
So I ended up with just 184 acres now, and we have a house just out of Mason on 741.
All right. I'm glad you guys made it here then. How has the world changed from that period of time? You guys mentioned the milking machines, but what else about the farming process changed? You mentioned UDF and the milking.
Well, there's no small farmers no more. I mean, with the price of tractors, the combine, and other equipment, I got a lot of friends that farm several farms in the area and get up to around 500 acres to 1,000 acres they farm out at a time, and that got beyond my realization if I could have done that. But
I think we did that too. We had a lot of people that we knew, doctors and lawyers, that all had invested in some.
we farmed 600 acres at one time
Right.
when the boys came out of college. But then as the property sold and stuff, and
All those properties were developed,
Mhm.
all little housing complexes now. That used to be farms we used to work on. And really, when we moved here, you could raise a family on 100 acres or less. You'd have a few cows, a few pigs, maybe some goats, and you'd raise corn, soybeans, wheat, and was able to do that. But now, and a lot of the farmers would work together. Like we would have people come in the fall and fill silo. I don't know if you've ever heard of that, but they come in with choppers and all, and they fill the silo, and there'd be 8 or 10 men, and all I did was fix lunch. They'd have a big lunch, and then
instead of like the combine that we combine wheat with, we had binders, and it would cut wheat and put it in bundles, and you'd put it in shocks, and then there would be somebody in the area would own a thresh machine, and then 4 or 5 farmers get together and they'd bring in the thresh machine. Then they come in with their horses and they would load up the bundles of wheat and run it to the thresh machine. So it was a community affair. And in the fall, my dad had what they called a shredder, and they would go through and pick the corn and then chop up the stalks. And
that's what goes at the silo.
And that would go into the silo, and he did custom work with that too, at the different farms around. So it was at one time a community affair for farms, but now they're all each pretty independent.
Yeah.
And do you feel like the idea of a community and a farming community is starting to go away? Or is it?
Yes, we used to have something called Lebanon Farmers Club. Actually, Warren County had 3 farmers clubs, I think. And just amazing, it would be a whole day affair. You get, and it was usually was hosted in the individual farmer's home. And the people would bring their horses and all that. That was before my time, but even after I got on the picture, we would have a whole almost, at least 4 hours of a meeting. We'd have dinner and there'd be a program, and they even had dishes and silverware that went from house to house to have all that. And it was, wonderful, just a really community. Well then, in the 50s and 60s, women started to work, and there was no woman to be there to help with these meals and all. And so Farmers Club finally became more of a social, well, it always was social, a very good social, I think, for the farmers, but things changed a lot there.
We also had Farm Bureau,
we still have Farm Bureau.
Yes, we have Farm Bureau, and of course we belong to that too, and that gave us a lot of information about farming, and we had a meeting once a week or a month, right? And
the Farm Bureau is they have a big lobbying people, they're politically active in getting things like that done, and hopefully for the good of the farmer, trying to make things better there.
Right.
But of course that changed. But to me, one of the biggest changes, the cost of things. You have. Paul looked at a magazine the other day that was advertising a used combine, which is what harvests the wheat and the soybeans and the corn. And it was 3 years old. They wanted $325,000 for it. I mean, that's more than we paid for our farm, So the cost of the equipment is just totally. But even more than that is the technology that's coming in, all the AI, the farmers. In fact, we heard someone from, I think it was from the University, Ohio State University, said, nowadays if a farmer goes to a bank for a loan, the banker will say, "How old is your phone?" And if it's more than 3 years old, he'll say, "We can't give you a loan. You're not up enough on the technology to keep up with what's going on now." And that's kind of scary to me, who has difficulty. One of the companies offers you a free phone every year, on their program. I said, I don't want that, because it takes me a year to learn how to use my phone to start with. But to me, and I think you feel that way too, Paul, the technology is the very biggest change now.
Technology has gotten very much. Back in the 70s, I had this farm loan with Federal Land Bank, and I heard that our president of the Federal Land Bank was leaving, and Federal Land Bank, you had employees, and there was 5 farmers that was on the board of directors, and then once a year they had a meeting for the whole 4 counties. So I went to the meeting that time and wanted to find out.
He was on the board. Go ahead.
And then all of a sudden, when I left, I was on the board. They had an election, and I wasn't even thinking about running. And the 2 guys on the board was retiring, and they had 2 guys was running. And the guy in the meeting said, "Well, let's have an election." And so another guy they nominated, and the fellow behind me, who I really didn't know, had nominated me. And I said, I thought, I can't do that farm too. And I thought back, there's 2 guys wanted, there's a 3rd guy that made us split the votes. No chance. I walked out being on the board. But we learned how to be on it. I served for 12 years.
What were your responsibilities there?
Well, we'd have meetings, and any farm loans come through, we had to okay them and try to keep things rolling as we could.
Have your guys' voices be heard, essentially?
Oh yes, we made decisions that went on in the area.
All right, that's unexpected. I was just going through the adulthood questions here, and we've already talked about them. We already talked about children, adulthood, how you guys met. And you guys said you left. You said 30 years ago is when you left the farm. Were you at that old place?
We moved off the farm 30 years ago, but I stayed involved until, well, it was 25 years ago, I just turned it over to the boys.
How involved were you? Just giving advice, telling them where things were when you left it?
Well,
Would run go get parts when they needed them?
Yeah.
Oh, goodness.
when I turned the farm over to them, I was available. I drive the tractor and do work where they needed, and I had to do run around for them and stuff. And I still stayed involved. And so I tell them about my other job.
Oh, yes, that would be interesting.
The leader of the Federal Land Bank, they closed Lebanon office and a lot of the offices in Ohio and made bigger territories.
Mm-hmm.
So he retired. He was the president. And one day, and he went to work for Lebanon Citizens Bank as a courier. Now, a courier is a guy that takes products to the bank and brings things back. They don't take no money, and they work 3-4 days a week, part-time, more or less. And all of a sudden, I got a call, and this man said, you know, we got a courier quitting at the bank. Would you want to take the job? I said, well, I don't know. So I went up and checked on it. And the guy I talked to, I knew he had worked at another bank, and I knew him, and he knew me. And he said, well, I didn't know this guy's quitting, but if he is, the job's yours. Well, I got a job at Federal Land Bank, Lebanon Citizen Bank as a courier, and I did that for 19 years. And she did it for several years.
I did it for 10.
Oh, my
It
goodness.
was a great job. I mean, I
You do a
loved
lot
to
of
drive.
driving from bank to bank and
Yeah.
stuff. And they had about 30 banks at that time.
Yeah.
And you get about 4 or 5, 6 banks to go to, maybe twice a day.
It was a fun job.
Nice. Hey, I like driving around myself. It's not for everybody, but
Right.
it's not that bad. What was an average day of that for you guys? The courier business, the farming, or being a housewife, or what would you guys' average day be? Say, let's start with when you guys first started on the farm.
What we were,
Your average day would be.
I don't know how to answer that.
Sure you do. What was your day? I mean, you get up in the morning,
Oh.
go milk cows, come in and have breakfast.
Yeah, well, when I milked cows, you got up 5 o'clock every morning. And then as the kids got bigger, teenagers that are older, her mother and dad moved to New York.
Mm-hmm.
So we'd take a week off and go visit them. And then, of course, when I got with the Federal Land Bank, we had meetings once a year all over. We Florida, Louisiana, Texas, New Mexico, and we got to see a lot of the country that way. And but then as I retired from that, and
What was your average day when you were working?
the
actively
average
on the
day when
farm?
I was working would be at least 14 hours. I mean, you got up in the morning, milked cows at 5, and then milked at 5 at night, and at the time you got the milkers, waters and stuff, it was 7 o'clock. And then we'd go out square dancing.
That was in the evening, yes.
When the sun went down, huh?
But after breakfast, Paul would go out and work in the field usually, or the cows needed some extra attention, and then they'd come in for lunch, and then they'd go back out. And I always count. I would work like 2 hours getting a lunch, especially if Paul's father was there, and I'd fix his big lunch, which was, meat, potatoes, vegetable salad, dessert, and they'd be in there eating it and gone in 15 minutes, and I was there with all the dishes and things, but it worked out fine. And in the afternoon, they'd work too, and then 4:30, Paul would come in and have, usually you milked before we ate. No, we ate before we milked.
Before we milked.
Yeah. And so,
Another thing we did, when we baled hay, we need other help. And we hired a lot of high school boys.
I did some of them myself, and
Yeah.
could not do it very well.
So, yeah, we gave quite a few of them jobs over the years.
but it was funny, they would be, have to leave to go to football practice. And then I'm thinking, which, I understood that, but some of them could hardly lift those bales. I wondered how they were going to manage the football. But that worked out. But the farm is a great place to raise children. As I said, they always had a job to do, a meaningful job, not just busy work. But our boys, when they got to be teenagers, said, yeah, it's a good place to live, except when you're a teenage boy. Because there were, all the after-school activities, sporting and all that stuff, they never were able to get too involved in that. And but they still, I think, at least 3 of the 4 would love to have been full-time farmers. But the way things have been financially, it's really hard to make a living with only farming. Most of the farmers we know drove school buses or something like that in order to keep up insurance and that kind of thing, because self-insured is very, very expensive.
Oh yeah.
But I think down deep, at least 3 of them would love to have been farmers full-time. And they're all still very much involved in agriculture, but not as much as they might like to have.
You gotta go where the money's going, right?
That's right.
I get that. What was your average day like? Because you mentioned it briefly.
I'll get up, fix breakfast. I'd usually go down. Most of the days, wasn't it, Paul, that I would go and wash the milkers and things, and then go back up to the house and have breakfast, and then laundry, just regular housewife stuff. But I was involved in a lot of other activities. It was in Bethel Club, which was a homemakers club, and taught some CCD, religious classes at school. He was 4-H advisor, as was Paul. He had a different club. He had the West Turtle Creek Hustlers, and my club was the Happy Stitchers. And so it was cooking and sewing. And then when
we had activities at the church.
Yeah, a lot of activities at church. Both of us were quite involved in church, and still are to a certain extent. And but we are definitely slowing down. But we try to keep, as I said, we go to a lot of funerals, which we feel fortunate to be able to go, but
Ironically, get you up and going and moving, so the irony of it.
Well, most days we're pretty much moving. Some days we have days off. We just celebrated our 70th wedding anniversary, and it's taken us a few days to recover.
Oh man, is that the... At what point? So gold is 50th, right? So up past that point, what would you guys call it?
Platinum?
Platinum. It is platinum. And we got this, we told everyone, we did have a party and we invited quite a few friends, and we said, no gifts. If you would like to bring something, bring food for our free store, our food bank for our church. And so we got a lot of stuff. But we also got a little deck of cards, which is Family Feud. Shows you how to play Family Feud, and it says Platinum Edition. And the people that gave us said, this is the only platinum thing our budget would allow. It was really cute. But,
another thing, after I retired, a fellow invited me to go down to Cincinnati and a Delta King chorus, so you go. And I joined that for 15 years.
barbershop, of course.
Barbershop.
Oh, well, that's out of left field.
Yeah, it really does seem to be, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And one of the quartets came to sing at our 70th
Yeah, one of the
party.
quartets that came to sing at our party.
All right.
We've had a very full, active life, I would say that.
Good.
Yeah, I was younger. I played ball for the Knights of Columbus for 4 or 5 years until we moved here to Lebanon. We kept busy.
Good. All right, I already talked about how work changed. Yeah, I'm going down the list here. And we already talked about how your family's changed throughout the years. Oh my goodness.
We're very talkative, aren't we?
We've gone to each section. What so this is more of a broad question, but what significant events occurred in your lifetime that you would say had a great impact on you? So different people you've talked to in your guys' lives that encourage you to go a certain way, or it could be like national events that you would like to throw in that you would say had a big impact on your guys' lives.
Well, I don't know. Well, of course, being on the board of directors of the Federal Land Bank, I seen what other farmers were doing, and I could improve what I was doing through that.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know, of course, my father had a lot of influence of what I did, and as we worked together, he helped me over the years quite a bit. I don't know any great changes we made, but farming has changed a whole lot. That I don't know if I can go out there and farm today because of the big equipment and things that's got to be maintained.
Mm-hmm.
I think probably the biggest influence of my life is my religion, my church. That certainly has been a guide to me the whole time. I remember when the Second World War, when President Roosevelt declared that. I was with my mother in Cincinnati in the Alms and Depke department store, which you've never heard of. It's not anymore. But they gave his speech over a big loudspeaker that went through the four floors of the Alms and Depke building to hear what he was saying about the war. Of course, the day before, I was with my dad, who was, we don't need to put all this in, he was from Austria in Europe and very proud to be an American. He came over when he was 19, and he was just a real patriot for the United States. And that afternoon, on Sunday, when Pearl Harbor was bombed, my father and mother went to visit some family who's also German, and they were just really talking about it. And I was 7 years old. I was 7, 8.
For 41, you was over that.
I was 8.
Okay.
Yeah, I was 8. And that made a real impression. And of course, when the war was over, that was a big impression for me. There were a lot of those kind of things, like the New York, what's that called?
9/11?
9/11, yeah, that was big. But a lot of that, but I think just the friends we've made through our church and through the farming community have been a big influence on our lives too. Kept us going.
Oh, they certainly would have helped. We can talk about different things as well, like if you guys remember the JFK assassination, or if you guys remember, COVID, your guys' times through that whole ordeal. I mean, that would have helped. My grandmother would talk about the polio in the 50s at the time that really influenced her. Yeah. Any of that stand out to you guys?
Well, of course, I remember polio. A lot of, in high school, there were 2 or 3 of the fellow students that had it, and how scary that was. And then when our kids were little, and the Salk vaccine and the Sabin vaccine came out, and how happy we were about that, to feel that we'd had that. And of course, COVID was another thing. Get the shots or not. And I didn't hesitate a minute. I thought, of course we'll get the shots. I know that's what you need to do. And,
how are you guys through the whole pandemic? Was it sitting put, staying in your house. What did you guys decide to go and do?
What?
During the COVID pandemic?
COVID?
Well, of course, we got our shots, but we still.
We wore masks if we went to the
Wore
grocery
masks
store.
whenever
Washed
we
our
went out.
hands a lot more.
And I don't know, it didn't seem to slow us down too much. We kept our friends and
Yeah,
we didn't. We still played cards at that time, didn't we?
not for a while.
Not for a while. Okay.
I remember I belonged to a little group that goes out to lunch once a month. And there were like 15 or 16 of us, and then came polio. Not every time, but there'd be about 16 people that would be there most of the time. And during COVID, we didn't do that for about 2 years. And when we went back, half the people were on canes, on walkers. So much had happened.
They got
Of
old.
course, yeah, we were all in their 80s by then anyway. But it seemed like that 2 years took a big toll on our. And I don't think it was COVID, it was just that we had, reached that age. That made a difference. But we kept up pretty well. I certainly missed church. We didn't have mass for, 6 months or so. But we watched it on television. And but that's not the same.
No, I'm afraid not. I mean, I've heard people would do, have their pastor or priest on the video and whatnot, or on Facebook, and
Yeah.
not exactly the same, no.
No, not exactly the same. Because I remember, again, this is certainly beyond the point. This person said, he was talking to his father because he wasn't going to church, and the father said, "Why aren't you going to church?" "Well, I can pray to God. I can, be a good person without that." So I think it may have been Billy Graham's father or something. He said, "Come over here." He said, "See this fireplace? There was coals in the fire, and they were all glowing, how it would toward the end of the fire." And he takes the tongs and brings one little piece of glowing coal out, and it just got lower and lower and didn't glow anymore. And he said, "You need to go to church. You need to have that companionship of other Christians and get that." And that always impressed me. I thought that was pretty good thing. You can't do it alone. I think we've learned. I mean, they say the children are certainly suffering from their isolation during that time with schoolwork and all.
We've had a lot of friends that Presbyterians, and we've gone to things at their church, and what's the one's closing now?
Little Methodist church.
Not Methodist.
Oh.
Yeah, the Methodist. We would be with those people too. We'd go to their church for little things. And we kind of, the whole group around and just.
Well, I'll tell you one thing that I have found to be totally, that I don't understand it, and I'm trying to, is the transgender business. That's just something that as a child, I never heard of gay people or anything as a child. I just didn't know it. And I'm trying to understand it, but
now there's a lot of them out there. I don't know where they all come from.
They kept it hidden before.
Right, yeah, and now it's out, which in many ways is a good thing that we know that happens, but I don't know, just that's been a major impact on our social groups too,
Yeah.
Because some people are just get away, and that's certainly wrong, but it's just really hard to understand all that. Something we never had to deal with before.
That's nice to hear, as they're approaching it with kind words and understanding.
Right.
Yeah.
That's always a good start.
It's like politics too, You may be on the other side, but you've got to try to understand each other.
Absolutely. What are some of the greatest challenges you guys have faced in your lives?
Can I bring up the Bill Malampy?
Yes.
I farmed for this fella. The farm was in the neighborhood, and his wife died, and his son farmed with him, and his son's wife died, and then his son died. So I got to farm for him. I asked for him. And he got up to be 89 years old. And every morning I'd milk my cows and eat my breakfast and went over to his farm and took care of the cows I had over there. And I'd knock on the door, "How you doing, Bill?" Well, this one morning he didn't answer, and I went in there, and there he laid. He was dead. He had probably died the day before because his body was all stiff, but from his belt up, he was bare. His clothes was gone, and his skin was all discolored. It had burnt off of him.
Goodness.
And that kind of bothered him. So I had somebody to call, and they called in, and they had a courier come in and stuff. But what had happened, he was always full with the furnace. And this particular day he had it turned off, and he was cold. And he went to a gas stove and turned on the burner to get warm, and caught his clothes on fire. He went to the kitchen sink to get water to put it out. The pump had got, the pump had burned out, and no water. And of course you could track him through. He laid on a couch and put his billfold in there, and came back, sat by his bed, and then he got up to get in bed, and he fell on the floor, and that's where he died. And that was quite something.
Took Paul a long time to get over that.
Oh, man.
And he always said, "Bill, I'd like to buy your farm." He said, "When I die, you'll get the farm." And so, he had two people in charge of his will, and the one I knew died, and the other one I had never met, and I never got a chance to farm. They gave me a chance at a pretty good price, and I couldn't do it. So, but yeah, for what Bill went through on that, I just still bothers me. But what could I have done? But
And that was
what could you?
40 years ago, 50 years ago, a long time ago.
Oh, that was back in the 80s, I think, or maybe 70s.
That was probably the most traumatic thing.
That was the worst thing in my life I ever got her with.
Coming at you when you least expect it, too, yeah.
Right.
Well, something's going to happen to Bill and stuff, but something like that.
No. I wouldn't have expected that either. It seems...
He had messed with the furnace, and we had one guy one of the guys that took him out to get his grocery stuff. He put a little screw in it so he didn't get it too far up. And he was cold, and he turned it off. And he shouldn't have been living alone, but nobody could convince him that he just shouldn't.
I had a great grandfather I knew when I was growing up, and he loved playing with electrical stuff. He shoved a fan into a nightstand for whatever reason to see if he could bring air in the room. One day his house burned down, but he was fine. But stuff like that'll happen when you're screwing with stuff by yourself.
Right.
Man.
So that was the worst week of my life.
Yeah. Did you want the farm at the end of that?
I wanted to farm it, but of course the people who took over they gave me the first chance. Well, first they gave it to the real estate agent, and then he came to me. And I thought right there that they really wasn't too much interest in me, and if they didn't know me, I can understand that.
I see.
Now, the wife of the guy who died, she said, if my husband had lived, you would own that farm. They would have made sure, but things didn't work that way.
Man. What would you say would be your greatest challenge in your life?
Getting old.
Oh.
Lots of aches and pains and trying to keep up, But no, really, I've had a very good life, and this is probably, except for the aches and pains, the best time of my life. See the children grown, and we're expecting our 8th and 9th great-grandchild this summer, and it's been a wonderful life. We've been very blessed, very, very blessed.
I'm glad to hear that. How do you keep track of all their names?
It's difficult because they're not Bill and Jane and Jack. They're
I got to think way off.
Addison, Kinsley, Bodie. I mean, just these names. Like, we have one named Jack, and I think he's going to think he has a strange name.
Rest of them weird names.
Weird
Well,
us.
if you keep a family tree in the family Bible.
Yeah,
There
you
you go.
just keep having to look it up every time.
Hey, I'm sure they will understand. It's no big deal. Another grandfather of mine growing up would take 2 tries to get my name right because he would think I was the first oldest grandchild, but no, I'm the second oldest, so he kept going through all the kids. What are some of your guys' fondest memories?
Or summaries?
Fondest memories?
Fondest memories. I met her.
Wonderful.
Oh, there's a lot of things happened. When I got on the Federal Land Bank, I never thought I would get to see all the United States once a year. For 12 years, we'd go to a different state to have a meeting, and that was good. Her parents moved to New York, Geneva area, and we go up there and see what's going on up there, and met some of her relatives we don't see too much up there.
Well, I think one of our most exciting, we were invited to be on a Sister Cities tour and spent 2 weeks in Ukraine.
Oh, that was another one.
That
yeah.
was very enlightening and very exciting. We were there 2 weeks. We lived on a collective farm for a week and met all this. And this was just a year after they broke away from the Soviet Union.
Oh, wow.
And just to see what all went on, and all. And of course, now the family we stayed with, this was in 1991. And their son was just getting married, and he had a baby who would be in his 30s now. I'm worried about being in the conflict, with all that. But the lack of communication just got to be too hard because of the language. I mean, not many people there spoke English, and we, of course, don't speak Ukrainian or whatever they named it.
We had a sister city over there.
Kharkiv.
Kharkiv. And of course, we had all kinds of people that did different things. We went over there and worked out, and we were to go and work with the farm community. And we interviewed with the farmers, and we stayed with a farmer. He was one of the first ones that got his own farm, him and his son, and it was kind of interesting.
He was building his barn and his house while we were there, and we got to see that. But we went to a dance in the community, and it was just such fun. And our host said, the Ukrainians have a disease. It's called hospitality. I mean, it was because they've been, and every place we went visited schools and factories and a hospital, and they'd give us a gift. Flowers, or we got a grandfather's clock, a pendulum clock, and we got little wreaths, and we got little.
They gave us a lady who went around with us.
Interpreter.
And she was the interpreter for us, and she took us all over.
They took us on a picnic, and there were 4. And you always, if you wanted to go anywhere that you were going to be away from water, you had to bring water, and because there was no McDonald's or anything like that, you were out there in the boonies. And we go on this picnic, and we drive around, and finally I kind of said to Paul, I think we're passing the same place.
Oh, this guy would stop here.
Oh, yeah.
He needed something. He needed gas. what he really was doing, there was a group forming out in a
Orchard.
you might call it an orchard, and he was waiting till they got ready for us. And then so we was going the same roads, and then so finally he went on. All of a sudden we're going way out in this field and stuff. Now where we're going, and we end up in the orchard.
And I thought it was going to be an international incident, that we had been kidnapped.
So and they had beer. And there was a spring there, and they had the beer and the water and
A watermelon.
and a watermelon and lunch to eat. And then they quizzed me on our farming and asked questions, and I go back and forth. And then by the time, and I had a beer or two, and by the time we was about to leave, I said, well, I guess we gotta go. Oh, you gotta drink this. Yeah, this is great. So I drank it, and it was good.
Moonshine.
Moonshine. It not put me down.
But they had carried, those old-fashioned, from, I guess these were the 40s and 50s, they'd have tables, kitchen tables that would have porcelain tops like and stuff, and they'd carried that formica top with the silver legs. I used to see them in all the old movies and all, and they had carried that out to the picnic area, so we would have tables and chairs, table and chairs. But then after this drink that almost put Paul under the table, our interpreter wanted us to meet her parents, so we went into town on our way home, and first thing they brought out drinks.
You want to drink?
But that whole experience was just unbelievable. I mean, it was really wonderful. And I'm just sorry that we couldn't. We tried to stay in touch with them for a few years, and had our church. Their church had been bombed out and had been used as a warehouse, and they had the walls sort of knocked out and all. But these people, the priest would only come like once a month, and he would do weddings, baptisms, everything at the same time with Mass, And the Mass lasted about 2.5 hours because they did all this stuff. They had the First Communion, they had all that. And then afterwards, they had a big, like a covered dish out in the church yard, which was still pretty well beat up. But the building was, broken down. It was pretty bad. But they were just so happy. They were just happy people. Wow. So, yeah, I really worry about them now because that's where some of the fighting's going on there. Anyway.
Yeah.
What else can we entertain you with?
We're more than expected right now.
I wasn't excited when you mentioned that you guys were going to different not even vacation spots, but different spots around the U.S. I wasn't expecting Ukraine. What other locations did you guys end up going to on that because of your profession then?
Well, we went to where her father was born in Austria. We spent 2 weeks there. And
My grandmother was 90, and I couldn't talk to her because she didn't understand the language. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
She was hugs and all, but we tried. My dad and mom would interpret for us, but it's just not the same. I always felt bad. Why didn't I learn German? But my mom and dad didn't want me to learn German when I was little for 2 reasons, I think. First of all, that was during the Second World War, and there was a lot of German feeling, and Dad felt a lot of that. And he didn't want me to have an accent or anything. But I think they wanted to talk about things themselves in German that I didn't understand. That was a real reason.
Yeah, we stayed at a place. They milked cows. It was a farm. But this house we were in, they rented out different.
They had a restaurant. I mean, they fed you. It was like a bread and breakfast
Bread
now.
and breakfast, yeah.
This is called that then.
And they milked cows there, and we got to see how they farmed quite a bit. And where was I going? Something
About how they'd come in from the farm and
yeah.
they butchered
They milked a lot of cows in this area, and the guys would go out and get the cows in and bring them in the barn. The ladies had to milk them. So we went to another place where they had over 100 cows, and again, the fellows brought the cows in the pasture, and then they had modern milkers there, pipeline milkers, but the ladies did the milking.
Now that was in Ukraine, where the ladies did all the milking.
Yes, okay, that's right, that
Yeah.
was Ukraine.
Yeah.
But the ladies did all the work, and the men sat back and watched them.
Did that inspire you to do any of the milking back at home?
No.
Where was the Ukraine? We went up in the mountain.
No, this was Austria. We went up in the mountains.
Australia,
Yeah,
there,
that's
I'm
right.
all mixed up here. Way away from everybody. And this guy lived in this cabin. He had cows out there all on the farm, hillsides. And what was it, motorcycle, something, a motor, and he churned butter for the milk he got. And
Made cheese.
mhm.
Yeah, they had lots of cheese.
And quite interesting how some people farm different.
Yeah.
You got to change things up when you go up in the mountains, right?
Yeah. And how far do we have to walk to get there?
Oh, seemed like a mile at least. But people would come to buy the cheese and the butter. Another thing that's, I think, kind of unusual, nowadays a lot of farmers do, we have a timeshare in Florida for 2 weeks in February that we were able to go to for 34 years in a row.
Oh.
And that was another highlight of our lives, I think.
Yeah.
It's in Sarasota, beautiful city, and we've really enjoyed that. And our family has too, they'll come and visit us when we're there. So that was good.
That is nice to hear. You need to escape sometimes, right? Well, during the downtime.
Yeah, right. Well, we didn't for a long time, and we tested our friends too, because they'd say, you want to go out for a meal, and we'd say, well, it has to either be at noon or after 7 o'clock, because we have to milk cows. We can't go anywhere in the evening between 5 and 7. We have those cows to milk, and most people accepted it. It turned out well.
Oh yeah, most people would understand that. Oh, here's another general question. Do you have any stories your family has passed? Do you have any stories that your family has passed down? Either of you guys.
No, not that I really know.
I have one. When my mother was the oldest of 8 and lived in a little tiny German town in Indiana. They all spoke German until they started school, and very badly hit with the Depression and bad times. They got a priest into the village who helped start them raising strawberries, and all of them would have maybe a half acre of strawberries, which is a lot of strawberries on that picking. But anyway, aside from that, my mother left as soon as she could from the town, came to Cincinnati, and worked for some of the richer people who had maids and cooks and things, and she worked there. But her brothers and sisters and her mom and dad, their house burned down, and they had to they lived in the chicken house for 6 months. And my mother would always talk about that. They had to live in the chicken house. I never saw that. By the time I came along, that didn't happen. But that's one story I think of that from my family. Of course, my father told all the Austrian stories, how when he left home, his mother sort of ran after the train because she didn't know she'd ever see him again. And she didn't for 30 years, didn't see her. So, anyway.
On our side of the family, 2 brothers came over in 1850 to Cincinnati.
Mm-hmm.
And one was a farmer, and that's where our side come from. The other guy, he worked in Cincinnati. I mean, some of his kids were firemen and worked different jobs in the Cincinnati area. And actually, when I was in school, I met this girl. Here's her, she was a Steiner. Her mother was a Steiner, but it was from the other side of the family. And it was weird how you meet people as your relatives.
Oh yeah. I think I grew up with there was a Shelby Steiner I grew up with. So you guys are making it everywhere.
I had 2 teachers, last name was Steiner.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Making up everywhere.
When we moved to Warren County, we were the only Steiners in Warren County. That was in '57. And then now there's quite a few. And in fact, Lebanon had a mayor that was named Steiner, Jim Steiner. That was a long time ago. But one of our sons went up to ATI, Agricultural Technical Institute in Worcester, and he said they've got this little phone book and 3 pages are Steiners. And here there's none in the whole county. Now they are, of course, most of the Steiners now are from our family, but
Our original name from Europe was Hippelsteiner. And then they changed it when they came over here.
Oh yeah, we had a couple of that too. Oh, what would you guys say is what are you most proud of?
I would say our family, for me.
I guess the family that all grew up together here and still, they're all together and most of them are happy, I think.
And the fact that Paul got to be 95, he's the oldest male Steiner in how many generations?
Well,
2 or 3 at least.
those 2 Steiners from Germany, I'm the oldest of the descendants from them.
Man.
My grandfather got to be 90, and I had an aunt, and my mother, my mother wasn't a Steiner, but I had an aunt got to be 103.
But that was the female side, you know. Those women
I'm
are
the
strong.
oldest male of those 2 from them descendants.
Man, do you want to impart any secrets you want to throw at us?
I got no secrets.
How has your life turned out differently than you guys imagined it? Like, did you imagine being a farmer's wife or maintaining being a farmer or going into directorship? How has it changed from, how has it ended up differently than what you guys imagined it initially?
I don't know how to say that now. Of course, as things, when I grew up, we milked cows by hand, and all of a sudden we had milk machines, that's individual buckets to each cow. Then all of a sudden you got this whole, they walk in there, then you got this pipe to come down and put the milkers under, and I don't know how they do it now. It's changed a lot. And same way as I started out driving horses and then went into tractors, and tractors got bigger, and the wheat binder became a combine, and it did all in one pass through the field. Things just changed as we went on.
Just kept going. Any advice you guys would like to give anybody listening in?
I don't know if I can give them any advice.
You don't
change with them.
I would say, you know, I don't know. I never, as a child, figured ever to be a farmer. I was going to go in the medical field until I got mid-teenage, and then, I don't know. In fact, I always, even for a long time, but then when I got to know Paul and we got married, I can't think of being anything else other than a farmer's wife. Enjoyed that, been a good life, very good life. And I think, I had a priest once that he was a very nice man. I said, when did you decide to become a priest? He said this morning, he said, every morning I get up to make that commitment to be the best I can. And that's kind of what we do. Is
Yeah, I think,
we're going to do the best we can to be a good spouse and good parent, good whatever we need to be. But you have to make a commitment every day, because some days when you go to bed, you're not so sure it worked out. You have to start over. But we've been very blessed. We've had a wonderful life. We really have.
Is there anything else you'd like to add to the whole end
Not
of
that I
this?
can think of.
Okay, well.
This has certainly gotten longer than the half hour he told us.
How long did I say? Oh, goodness. Oh, I'm sorry. I just looked at the clock. It must be an hour 30.
Doesn't bother us at all, but you probably have other things you need to do.
Oh, probably transcribing this
And
oral
I hope
history.
you edit it well.
Oh, I'll try to do some lifting. And I'm teasing. Well, thank you guys for coming on.
Well, thank you for asking.
Thank you for having us.
Of course. All right, this will conclude this oral history.